Jesus' hour had come. He knows he has come from God and is going to God. And he knows the Father has given all things into his hands. He's at table with his disciples, whom he will soon call friends. He gets up from the table, takes off his outer robe, and ties a towel around himself. Rather than setting himself over his disciples, as his position of Lord and teacher dictates, he takes the place of a servant and washes their feet. This month, last week actually, is the 10-year anniversary of the sickest I have ever been. You know that one time in your life you can think back to where you're like, man, that was the absolute illest I have ever been. And for me, it was 10 years ago, and it was the week before Holy Week, and it was my senior year of seminary. It was late in the evening, and I was sitting on the futon in my dorm at seminary, and I was doing what I always did in my free time, which was playing World of Warcraft on my computer. Something was wrong. I felt feverish and sluggish. My reaction time in the game was super slow, and I thought I might throw up on my keyboard. I closed my laptop and went to bed. I slept fitfully and awoke Friday morning with the flu. A full-blown case. Even blinking hurt. You ever have that one? Oh. All right, back to the story. Jesus pushes his basin along the floorboards and crawls after it. He comes to Simon Peter, who still has his sandals strapped to his feet. "Are you going to wash my feet?" Peter asks. He knows how odd this scene looks. Last year, after Jesus miraculously fed 5,000 people, Peter called him the Holy One of God. And now this Holy One wants to do the duty of the lowliest servant? This is completely upside down, Peter thinks. "You will never wash my feet," he says. Back to my story. This is just going to go back and forth, so you'll figure it out. For 3 days, I lay in my dorm room, trying to move as little as possible. Fortunately, my complete series of Star Trek: The Next Generation had arrived from Amazon just in the nick of time. It is still the show I watch when I get sick, by the way. I propped up pillows on my bed, I sipped hot tea, I watched Star Trek and thought about all the work on my thesis I wasn't doing. But that was the least of my problems. I had no medicine. My one box of generic Dayquil had expired 2 years prior. That's what happens when a single 24-year-old is living in a dorm room. I also had no soup or crackers. I could barely stand, let alone drive to CVS and the grocery store. Now, asking for help has never been a favorite pastime of mine. Right, Ken? I had always thought of myself as pretty self-sufficient, but on that Friday morning, I had no choice. The flu had taken my self-sufficiency and tossed it in the trash with my used-up tissues. So Jesus looks at Peter and says, "Unless you wash, you have no share with me." In other words, Jesus says, "Unless you let me wash you, your destiny does not lie along the same path as mine. Unless you give up the illusion of self-sufficiency, you can never truly be one of my friends." So I called my friend Dean, and he brought me Theraflu. I called my friend Robert. He brought me NyQuil and more tissues. Brett brought me soup and crackers, and Sven, God bless him, brought me a vaporizer and VapoRub. They each knocked on my door, and I opened it, and they held the bags at arm's length. I took the bags, they wished me well, and I closed the door. I poured the Theraflu into the hot water and sipped the lemon-flavored drink. I made the chicken soup. I used the whole box of tissues in one day. Popped a couple of NyQuil before going to bed. And I ran the vaporizer day and night. So Jesus finishes washing the disciples' feet, puts his robe back on, returns to the table. "I have washed your feet," he says. I have washed your feet not in spite of my role as your Lord and teacher, but because of it. If I can wash your feet, then you should definitely wash each other's feet. By Monday, the flu had subsided. I was still weak, and the cement in my throat still needed sanding down, but I could move and smile and blink pain-free. I think now about that need to be self-sufficient. What a destructive and dangerous need it is. Self-sufficiency is an illusion. I am not self-sufficient. I never was, and I never will be. I rely on so many people, from the mother who nursed me as a baby, to the friend who brought me soup, to the person who collects my tissue-filled garbage. So Jesus gives his disciples a new commandment. That's why we call this Maundy Thursday, by the way. Maundy comes from the Latin mandatum, which means to command. Jesus gives his disciples a new commandment. Love one another. Just as I have loved you, you should love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. Life is only worth living when it can be shared with others. This sharing is another word for love. We are Jesus' disciples because we have love for one another. And love shatters the illusion of self-sufficiency. There is no such thing as self-sufficiency. Rather, an inability to accept the service of others masquerades as self-sufficiency. But this masquerade is a dismal half-life. Jesus came that we may have life and have it in abundance. And when the flu knocked me out 10 years ago, my friends served me. I had no choice but to let them serve me because I could not serve myself. And I am better for it. Of course, that old self-sufficiency grows back, right? And so then when my kids were born and everybody in this room helped us, it seems like, I realized it again. And then I realized it again and again and again. And that's what love does for us. It helps us remember that we are all connected one to another. In all of these acts of loving service, we wash each other's feet, even if it's not literal. But we will literally do it in a minute, as a symbol of that love, that commandment, the mandatum. In the love of God, I have a share with those friends from 10 years ago, with each of you, with the garbage man collecting that tissue-filled bag of trash. I have a share with them, and we all have a share with Jesus Christ, who said, love one another, just as I have loved you.